Hi Taurus, welcome to June 2020. This is eclipse season. It's also retrograde season. A lot of time to reflect. The lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, albeit partial, is quite intense. It is very much asking you to consider why certain points in your life seem to play out the way they always do. A lot of your current fears that bubble up around this lunar eclipse are embedded quite deeply in your psyche, in your childhood, and they most likely stem from a particular event, a particular trauma, maybe in your childhood, maybe in your teenage years, be it the breakdown of a relationship, be it a time of financial difficulty or strain. A lot of this is motivating certain things in your life, and that's why they're playing out a certain way. Something in your past that shook your security is playing out in your life. Be it the reason you stay in a particular job far too long, as many fixed signs do. Be it why you keep dating the same type of person over again. Be it why the same fight keeps occurring. Whatever it is, it's time to get to the root of it. The 8th house is much to do with merging of souls, of resources. And there's a sense of security in that, yes, but there's also a sense of insecurity in that. Perhaps your fear is the reason why you accept subpar love relationships, or why you stay in a job that stresses you out and ruins your health, or why certain things just feel difficult. A lot of it is from fear of having your security shaken, fear of abandonment even, because as children, we know that if we're abandoned, we could die. It's a survival instinct that stays with people long into adulthood. So if something shook you as a child, it can really reappear in your adult relationships and your adult lifestyles. And the 8th house is not to be feared. I'm somebody who has a lot of 8th house in my chart. It's quite a spooky house to explain to people, I suppose, because it's all about death and taxes. And with that comes great certainty, because we all know that they're certain. But it is, 2020 has a lot to do with redefining our degrees of stability, defining what we regard as stable. We live in a very uncertain time in many ways, and no horoscope, no taroscope is ever going to discredit any of that. They're there to simply make you re-examine your own energies. And I think for a lot of you, in terms of your money, I think those of you that are in uncertain circumstances, or even those of you that are still in your jobs but you hate them, a lot of it is to do with re-examining what you deserve. And I think for so many Taurus that I observe is that oftentimes you forget that you deserve more than what you regard as stability. And for some of you, you could also be setting the bar quite low in terms of what would be stable for you if you're in a job where you're feeling very unhappy. And similarly to your relationships, I think a lot of you could be still willing, in some cases, to sell yourself short for the sake of having somebody. And if neither of those are the case, if you're quite content with where you are, then it is simply asking you to let go of something possibly in the last 6 months that made you feel very angry at somebody. Possibly a friend, but it could be anybody. Something that made you feel very angry, and it is still sucking a bit of energy out of you. The lunar eclipse in Sagittarius is asking us to close a door in some way. And I think for a lot of you, it is not necessarily the easiest thing to admit that you want out of something, or that you would like something to take on a new chapter, or you would like a raise, or you would like more responsibility, or you would like more commitment, whatever it is. By the time we get to the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, you're willing to verbalize these things, and you need to verbalize these things. Mercury is going to be retrograde in Cancer from the 18th until I think the 12th of July. So the effects of the new moon in saying what you want to say or verbalizing what you need to verbalize could be somewhat subdued or somewhat delayed, but certainly you will speak up where you need to speak up. And perhaps you just need to admit something to yourself that you wish you'd admitted a long time ago. Mars is going to move into Aries, and Mars is very comfortable in Aries. It will be in Aries for the rest of the year, and it's going to be in the 12th house for you. Very psychic, very psychological as well. And you can put a lot of action into healing these areas of yourself, Taurus. Really a good time for some deep introspection and self-improvement that you deserve. You know, it's the self-care that you need, I think, at the moment. You may become very aware of this, but the Mars saga in Aries is going to give you the energy to put into your mental health, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being. And I think after Venus being retrograde, Venus being your ruler, of course, in Gemini, in your second house of worth, I think it's showing you where some parts of yourself deserve a bit more self-care, a bit more love, a bit more attention, a bit more selfishness, even though there's a lot of people depend on you. 3 of Pentacles, in terms of work, in terms of your colleagues, I think a lot of it is you having to speak up, you having to put yourself forward, you having to verbalize on behalf of the group, you having to carry the weight of something. And I think for a lot of you, you're getting a bit impatient with that. You're getting a bit impatient of the way things are communicated to you, the lack of communication, the lack of structure, the lack of help. Regardless of what point you're at in your career, I think a lot of you are thinking about, or you're revisiting what you should be doing. You know, Saturn is retrograde in your 10th house, asking you to revisit the way that you work in the world, the particular sector that you work in, the particular respect that you garnish or lack thereof. So a lot of revisiting there, and I think you're starting to see some cracks in a particular antique, something that you have for a long time seen value in that had possibly lost a bit of value over time anyway, and that you could maybe start to upgrade, particularly in work. But if it's not a work situation, a lot of it is to do with your friendships. A lot of it is to do with where there has been some cracks there as well. Mars being in Pisces, Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces. You could see where some friends have maybe made you feel a bit more disillusioned, or there has been some confusion, and maybe that starts to become clear when Neptune goes retrograde on the 23rd. You start to see some people for who they really are, and again, that can be quite unsettling. But it can also be quite wonderful that it shows you who some people really are, because that can be a good thing too. You can see who your real friends are. You can see who really has your back, which is as good to know. Clarity. I think for a lot of you, you would like to put more time into the thing that you're passionate about. And chances are those of you with a side hustle, those of you with a hobby, are going to find that it could actually in the next 6 months become your main source of income. The more passion that you put into it, the more joy that you get out of it, the more it flourishes. Whether it's the jobs that you're in that feel unhelpful, unhappy, you start to feel like you're not going anywhere, and you don't like that feeling anymore. Uranus is in your sign to shake you up. And yes, you very much fear the 5 of Pentacles. It is the Taurus worst nightmare, but it's not what you think it is. It's actually that perhaps you are settling in the desolate, in the snow, because it is familiar. It is, again, that fear of abandonment, that fear of losing out. So staying in something that you could do a lot better than. And I know you don't like change. But the 8th house eclipse is a lot to do with regeneration, being reborn. It's not, it shows you where certain endings are always new beginnings, and that there is more opportunities available to you than you see right now. And maybe you don't see them until the very end of June, leading into July, but they will reveal themselves. That fear that is driving you just needs to be tweaked. You know, where there was great heartbreak, where there was great pain, where there was great fear, you learned something from it. And in knowledge, we can often learn not to repeat the past mistakes. But that doesn't mean we have to be stubborn with a particular way of doing something or a particular way of living. Because if we're living to avoid something, oftentimes it can continuously reappear until we acknowledge it. We reattract it, as it were. And you deserve so much more. For those of you that are in a those of you that are in a job that you like, for those of you that are in a career, those of you that are in a house, those of you that are quite comfortable with your material surroundings, I think that you still go through the same level of re-examination. I think you still go through the reconsideration. I think you still go through the investments. For some of you, it is a need to fill a void with material things as a way of deflecting the emotional hoarding that you've maybe done over the years, where you're still holding on to baggage very tightly, and the lunar eclipse wants you to let go of the baggage very tightly. But if you overspend, if you clutter up your home with material possessions, people oftentimes don't necessarily see beyond that. It's a very good deflection tactic of Taurus people, I've noticed. You can often see that they don't get rid of things, or they don't, you know, it's funny because my dad is a Taurus and my mum got him a jumper back in the 60s and he still wears it. It's definitely too old, but he still wears it. But yes, 4 of Wands, it is perhaps cluttering yourself up in your own home, or staying in your old neighborhood, or staying in a place where the rent is too high, or staying in a place where you feel very trapped in your home because of the familiar. A lot of you have a need to break out of this, and I think in Leo season, because that is your 4th house of home and we start seeing changes there, I think a lot of you decide to make a move. Even if it's very scary, even if it's very new, I think a lot of you might make a move, or might start considering changing up where you live, or the way that you decorate, or whatever. I think a lot of you are making changes in the home. Fresh lick of paint, maybe decluttering a little bit. But again, sometimes I find with Taurus, you have to do a little bit of introspection on why you're keeping certain things for so long. Ooh, there goes the Hermit. And with Mars in the 12th house, you're going to be doing a lot of reflection. So what about love? Well, for you, the thing that is blocking you from the intimacy, from the romance, from the commitment that you seek, if that is what you seek, or the deepening of a bond, or the financial merging of a union, whatever it is you seek romantically, you've been very patient in waiting for something. You've been very patient in waiting for something because the universe wants it to be the right thing, not the wrong thing. You discover something in June that, if you are entirely single, puts you into a position of finding that 10 of Cups. And a lot of you, yes, it is to do with getting to the root of that fear of abandonment. Wheel of Fortune underneath that is the Tower, where you have been, where you have been building false foundations due to fear of having your security rattled, so the universe kept throwing it at you. Particularly if your past relationship that hurt you so badly was a Libra. Or if a family unit broke down, a lot of you are having to revisit how you feel about that. And it's time to rebuild. You know, the interesting thing about Jupiter being an earth sign is that so much of this year is to benefit you, is to bring you luck. And it is in terms of your higher self, your ideals, your belief systems. And this 8th house energy of Sagittarius is really getting you to the root of what you need to let go of in order to have the thing that you want. And for a lot of you, it is rooted in a lot of pain from the past, a lot of fear, a lot of disruption. But in acknowledging it, you break yourself free of what felt almost like a curse. But it wasn't a curse. It just needed to be aired. And with this lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, you can let it go. And over the next 2 months, you will be doing some reflection and changing your thought processes with Mars and Aries. But it's only leading you to where you want to go. You've been very patient. It's very much appreciated. But there's some lovely stuff right around the corner for you. You just have to do a little bit of decluttering and make some room for it. There's this thing in feng shui about how if you want to call in a partner, because my mum taught me this when I was younger, but if you want to call in a partner, or you want to call in an opportunity, or you want to call in something, in feng shui they say that you have to make space for it. You know, if it's a job, for example, you have to clear out your desk drawer to make room for your new materials. Or if it is a love relationship, you have to declutter half your closet or half your wardrobe. I always struggled with that bit, but the concept is that when you free up some sort of space in your life, you invite more in. And if it's you want to invite in more money, it's that maybe you have to get rid of certain things that you've outgrown, that you can't wear anymore, that you don't use anymore. And for some of you, it is that you need to get a bit more comfortable with having the space and trusting that it will be filled, because it will, whatever this 10 of Cups is for you. It's very poignant that it has appeared there. Very poignant that it has appeared. Particularly after the Hermit and the 7 of Pentacles, meaning that some very important self-reflection and looking within for answers has cleared up that space. So whatever that 10 of Cups is for you, I hope that you feel that in doing some form of emotional catharsis or letting go ritual or whatever it is for you with this lunar eclipse, you can feel more connected and more trusting, and the thing that you want is right around the corner. See you later, Taurus.